In this presentation, we want to provide you with some general information on the features of Market Access Map and on different types of tariffs. Market Access Map allows us to evaluate the market access conditions in a selected market. You can see the tariffs applied to your country as well as compare these with those applied to competitor countries, possibly under different tariff schemes. Thus, a possible market access advantage can be discovered. This leads, in a second step, to identifying the markets or market segments in which the product has the best market access advantage. Thirdly, Market Access Map allows us to evaluate the attractiveness of a country from a foreign direct investment perspective with respect to market access. Market Access Map has a wide geographical coverage, with tariffs applied by 191 countries to 239 exporting countries and territories. Also, it has a wide coverage of instruments, including ad valorem tariffs, specific tariffs, tariff quotas, anti-dumping duties, and, with the update of Market Access Map, also non-tariff measures. The tariff information includes preferential trade agreements. Market Access Map covers preferences arising out of bilateral and regional trade agreements, and also rules of origin and certificates for most agreements. The option to view all this information sorted by region, economic sector, or by measure gives you a large analytical flexibility. Market Access Map is continuously updated with data from different sources. The information on applied tariffs is collected by ITC directly from national customs institutions. The tariff quota data comes from the World Trade Organization, more precisely the Agricultural Notification of Tariff Quota, and from national sources for bilateral and regional tariff quota agreements. Also, trade data from national sources, the Integrated Database, the WTO, and the Comtrade database of the United Nations Statistics Division is included. To view all this information, you can enter Market Access Map by the webpage MAcMap.org. When doing market access analysis with MAcMap, there are different types of tariffs you may encounter. The most frequent tariffs are ad valorem tariffs, which are levied on the basis of the value. They are used by most of the countries and make up around 87% of tariffs worldwide. For example, the Australian import tariff for wine is 5% for the HS code 2204212070. Imagine that the price of a 1-liter bottle of French wine is $8 while 1 liter of wine from New Zealand costs $6. At the border, a tariff of 5% on the price of $8 has to be paid, which equates to 40 cents for the Australian wine. The tariff for the New Zealand wine is 5% on $6, which equates to 30 cents. In addition to ad valorem tariffs, there are also specific tariffs used that are not levied on the basis of the price, but on the volume, weight, or number of units of the product. The country most using specific tariffs is Switzerland, where more than 80% of all applied most favored nation tariff lines are specific tariffs. For Thailand, Russia, Argentina, Belarus, and the United States of America, the shares are around 10%. Let's have a look at an example for specific tariffs and how they change relative prices after the border. The Swiss import tariff for beef is approximately 14 francs for the HS codes 02, 01, 0219 and 02, 01, 2099. That is, for a specific type of bovine meat outside of a tariff quota. Let's analyze how this affects the after-border prices for differently priced meat imports. Imagine there are imports of meat of different quality, which translates to diverging product prices. For example, ordinary Argentinian beef costs 3.5 francs per kilogram, and Argentinian prime quality beef, that is 4 times the quality of the ordinary beef, also costs 4 times more, that is 14 francs per kilogram. At the border, a tariff of 14 francs per kilogram has to be paid, irrespective of the original price of the product. This leads to an after-border price of 17.5 francs per kilogram for the ordinary beef and of 28 francs per kilogram for the prime quality beef. The tariff of 14 francs is 4 times the price of ordinary beef and just as high as the original price for the prime quality beef. This translates to ad valorem equivalents of 400% and 100% respectively. Comparing the after-border prices directly, we observe now that after the tariff is paid, the high-quality beef is only 1.6 times the price, but is still 4 times the quality. Thus, the specific tariffs change the relative prices of differently priced products of the same HS code. There are also tariffs that combine ad valorem tariffs and specific tariff rates. They are called compound tariffs. For example, a tariff of 10% plus $2 per unit could be applied. Compound tariffs are frequently applied by Japan, the European Union and Canada. For example, the USA applies a tariff of 4.3% and $528 per ton to imported chocolate of the HS code 18063208, which is chocolate in blocks, slabs or bars weighing 2 kilograms or less, not filled, containing over 5.5% by weight of butterfat, not elsewhere specified or indicated. Imagine Switzerland exports chocolate of this HS code to the USA, where the price per ton is $9,260. Mexico also exports chocolate of this HS code to the USA, but with an average price of $2,600. The compound tariff again changes the relative after-border prices of the differently priced products of the same HS code, just as described before for the specific tariff. Here, the ad valorem part of the compound tariff of 4.3% translates to a tariff of $398 for the Swiss chocolate, as 9,260 times 0.043 is 398. Additionally, the specific tariff of $528 per ton is applied, such that the total tariff applied is $926, representing an ad valorem equivalent of 10%. For Mexican chocolate, multiplying the price of $2,600 per ton with 0.043 yields a tariff paid of $120. Adding the specific part of the compound tariff of $528, this results in a total tariff paid of $648 per ton. In absolute terms, this tariff is smaller than that applied to Swiss chocolate, but this is only due to the diverging prices. In relative terms, the tariff applied to Mexican chocolate makes up 23% of its original price. Thus, the ad valorem equivalent is 13 percentage points higher than that applied to Switzerland. Moreover, there are mixed tariffs applied, for example by Canada, the European Union and Japan. They either apply the minimum or maximum of an ad valorem tariff or a specific tariff. For example, if we face a mixed tariff where we pay the maximum of 10% or $2 and export cheese worth $100 per kilogram, then the tariff we'd pay would be $10, as this ad valorem tariff is larger than the specific tariff of $2. But if the cheese were worth $10 per kilogram instead of $100, we'd pay the specific tariff of $2 instead of the 10% tariff, which would amount to only $1 here. Another example for mixed tariffs is shoe exports to Japan. There, the import tariff is the maximum of 30% or 4,300 Japanese yen per pair, which is $36. Thus, for relatively expensive shoes, where a pair costs around $1,000, the ad valorem tariff of 30% is applied, as 30% of $1,000 is $300 and larger than $36. For relatively cheap shoes, however, rather the specific part of the tariff is applied. For unbranded shoes worth $30, for example, a 30% ad valorem tariff would translate to $9 being paid, which is less than $36. This is why in this case a tariff of $36 would be charged, which is an ad valorem equivalent of 120%. In contrast to the normal ad valorem tariffs, specific tariffs or compound tariffs described above, there are also variable tariffs. They are levied on the basis of the product price or the unit as well, but the percentage rate or tariff per unit varies with the product price. For example, there are variable compound tariffs for EU imports of cherry tomatoes. If the declared price is between 0 and 57.6 euros per 100 kilograms, the tariff is 8.8% plus 29.8 euros per 100 kilograms. For a declared price between 57.6 and 58.8 euros per 100 kilograms, the applied tariff is 8.8% plus 5 euros per 100 kilograms, and so on. These variable tariffs can have the effect that the after-border price does not fall short of a specific lower threshold and doesn't increase too much with the price either once having exceeded the threshold. Tariff rate quotas also have a similar effect as variable tariffs. They are two-tiered and include a lower in-quota tariff that is applied to the first Q units of imports and a higher over-quota tariff that is applied to all subsequent imports. Tariff rate quotas should not be confused with quotas, the latter being an explicit limit on the quantity of goods that may be imported. Most of these quotas have been phased out as a part of the Uruguay Round trade agreement and instead changed to tariff rate quotas tariffication. For example, Japan applies an inside tariff quote rate of 0 Japanese yen per kilogram to imports of the HS code 10061090, that is, rice in the husk, paddy or rough, originating from the exporter, the United States of America, but an outside tariff quota rate of 341 Japanese yen per kilogram once a certain import threshold has been exceeded. In the case of tariff quotas or tariff rate quotas, one may ask how the imports are chosen to which the lower tariff rate is applied. There can be many different procedures to decide on this. The table shows a rough classification of the principal methods for administering tariff rate quotas. The first class of tariff rate quotas is called applied tariffs. Here, a quota only exists theoretically, but the import quantity is unlimited. Thus, the lower tariff is applied to all imports. This theoretical quota is of advantage for countries who possibly want to introduce or reintroduce a quota in the future. With the applied tariffs quota, they only have to decrease the maximum import quantity and won't face a large administration process. Another method for administering tariff rate quotas is the first-come, first-served method, where imports are permitted entry at the in-quota tariff rate until the quota is filled. The licenses on demand method may work in a similar way, but the first-come, first-served mechanism applies to the order of requests for licenses here, instead of the physical arrival of the goods. Alternatively, licenses can also be handed out in proportion to the requests, if the total demand for licenses exceeds the determined maximum quantity. With this method, importers often demand more licenses than they actually need, because they expect that only a certain percentage of their requests will be fulfilled. But licenses can also be issued depending on the highest offers in an auction or according to historical importers. Furthermore, it happens that the inside quota tariff rate imports are entirely or mainly undertaken by state trading entities or by producer groups or associations. Finally, it may occur that the used administration methods do not clearly fall within any of the above categories, such that other is stated, that mixed allocation methods are used, or that the administration method is not specified. In addition to the different tariffs applied, there is also often a so-called ad valorem equivalent, or AVE, calculated. For tariffs others than ad valorem, the effect of the applied tariff is calculated as if it were ad valorem. Thus, the particular tariff per unit is divided by the unit value. The ad valorem equivalents help to compare regional or sectoral tariffs when they are averaged, and they allow for comparison of the effective levels of protection across countries. The total ad valorem equivalent also is an average. The total ad valorem equivalent for the 6-digit position is just a simple average of all the AVEs at the national tariff line level. However, when we aggregate tariffs to get an average tariff at the 4-digit or 2-digit level, the total ad valorem equivalent is a trade-weighted average. There are different types of trade agreements to be distinguished. All of them are included in Market Access Map. Partial scope agreements reduce trade restrictions between partner countries for only few products. Free trade zones, agreements or areas eliminate trade barriers within that zone. Customs unions include a free trade zone and a common external tariff, whereas common markets additionally imply the free flow of factors of production such as capital and labor within the region. An economic union, moreover, includes the unification or harmonization of economic policies as monetary policy, regulatory regimes, etc. The European Union has a large number of trade regimes with third countries. The regime affecting most countries is the most favored nation regime, which applies to all World Trade Organization members. Another important regime is the generalized system of preferences, which gives preferential access to developing countries. The everything but arms regime, as a part of the European Union's generalized system of preferences, furthermore gives tariff-free and mostly quota-free access to imports from least developed countries, except for the imports of arms and ammunition. The number of free trade agreements has increased continuously. For trade in goods, the number of valid agreements has risen from very few in the 1960s to 277 in April 2011. All this implies that almost every country in the world is a member to an ever-increasing number of trade agreements, each with its own rules of origin. Because of the increasing number of regimes, it is difficult to keep up to date on what tariffs are applied and faced by your country and your competitor countries. It is confusing to understand what are the best conditions you face to access one specific market. And it is key to have more clarity and transparency on what tariffs and rules of origin apply to specific products in specific markets, which Market Access Map wants to provide you with.